Xtalks connects professionals in the life science, medical device, and food industries with useful content like webinars, job openings, articles, and virtual meetings to help you succeed in your career. This food industry-focused podcast brings together some of our editorial staff to share insights into the latest B2B industry news to help keep you up to date.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Xtalks Food Podcast. I'm Sydney Perlmutter, Senior Food Industry Journalist and Webinar Moderator at xtalks.com, and this week I'm joined by Vera Kovacevic. Thank you so much for coming today. So I'm going to start us off with a fun story about the top 10 restaurant chains in the States based on last year's revenue. Now, I thought it would be relatively easy to find all of their revenues, but some of them are just estimates. However, the top three were readily available simply because they are massive companies and they have very, very, very high revenues as well. So last year, the American fast food industry experienced significant transformations, and several chains expanded their market reach and others innovated to adapt to evolving consumer preferences. So this list that I'm going to be getting into, it not only highlights these restaurants' financial achievements, but also their influence on employment and their broad range of offerings. And each of these companies has uniquely positioned itself in the hearts of consumers by delivering distinct culinary experiences. And I was somewhat surprised at the first one, just because I don't typically think of this when I think of fast food, but it makes total sense. And that would be Starbucks. So Starbucks, based in Seattle, surpassed all of the rest in 2023 with revenue of nearly $36 billion. It has a global workforce of 383,000 people, and it stands as the premier roaster and retailer of specialty coffee worldwide. Not that I needed to tell you that. We already know. The company has captured the market with its unique coffee and tea beverages, also snacks and various seasonal specials that really resonate with an extensive demographic of people, myself included. All right, so second on the list is McDonald's, and it's headquartered in Chicago, and it reported a staggering $25.49 billion in revenue last year. So it's a global powerhouse. It employs approximately 210,000 people worldwide, and it's renowned, we know this, for its burgers, fries, and breakfast offerings, and it serves millions of people daily across its numerous global locations with staples like Big Mac and Happy Meals. Third on the list is Chick-fil-A, and I was kind of surprised at this one as well, how high it was on the list. It's based in College Park, Georgia, and it garnered $18.8 billion in revenue last year. With approximately 54,000 employees, Chick-fil-A is celebrated for its chicken sandwiches and distinguished customer service. Its focus on quality and community involvement has cultivated a very dedicated customer base, predominantly in the U.S. So just, speaking of these top three, were you surprised by any of them, like how I was a little bit surprised by Starbucks? And then also there's nearly, and in some instances a little bit more, about a $10 billion revenue difference between each one. Like, did that stick out to you?
Yeah, actually, I was just going to ask you, what was the revenue difference between Starbucks and McDonald's?
So it was about $10 billion. So Starbucks brought in $36 billion, and then McDonald's $25.49 billion. So a $10 billion difference there.
You know what I think it is? I think just coffee itself, I know that Starbucks uses its own Starbucks coffee, but coffee itself is not maybe as pricey to make and prepare as meat, right? McDonald's burgers and all of this and that. So maybe Starbucks has like more revenue for each item that they sell, right?
Oh, okay. So yeah, so the margins you think are a little bit bigger for Starbucks.
Because I was trying to think, how is Starbucks outcompeting McDonald's? First of all, I think there's more McDonald's locations, right?
I think around the world, yes. I think around the world, yes. In the U.S., I don't know. I wonder.
Yeah, I wonder too.
Yeah.
But definitely around the world, I think there's more McDonald's. I think more people visit McDonald's. It's more budget friendly. But I was really surprised that Starbucks was number one and that it was even on this list.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're paying a premium for coffee, right? And I'm very surprised that it's, the top fast food restaurant chain in the world right now.
Yeah, and maybe some people wouldn't consider it fast food. I still do. I still do consider it fast food. Yeah. But Good for Starbucks.
I know. I couldn't believe it. I was just trying to think like operationally how they made it to number one. And I think it's because they're mostly selling premium coffee and other places are selling, you know, like burgers and stuff, which they don't get as much revenue from selling an item of that. And a barista can prepare a coffee fairly quickly. A burger takes a little bit more time. And you know, it's meat actually, and just more expensive.
Yeah.
So, same with Chick-fil-A.
Yes. And I think the other thing is that, you know, coffee, people drink coffee every day. They don't necessarily get McDonald's every day.
True.
And that's not to say that people go to Starbucks every day. I know some people do, but I think just by virtue of, you know, coffee being such a staple in people's lives, if we look at it that way, it does make sense.
Yes,
it does make sense.
Now that I think about it.
All right, so I'll continue on with the list. Number 4 on the list is also something we have, to my knowledge, have only started getting a little bit of in Canada, and I've actually never had this one, and that's Chipotle. Huge in the States, though. It's based in California, and it reported $9.9 billion in revenue last year. It employs 97,000 people, and of course, it focuses on burritos, tacos, and bowls with a commitment to fresh, sustainable ingredients. And it's dedicated to natural and organic ingredients as well, which of course appeals to health-conscious consumers. A little bit of a switcheroo from that is Domino's, which I don't think necessarily appeals to the health-conscious consumers, but it is based in Michigan, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and it earned $4.5 billion in revenue last year. It has a very big workforce of 290,000 employees, and it excels in pizza delivery service, providing a very diverse menu that includes pizza, chicken, sandwiches, and more. 6th on the list is Taco Bell. Based in Irvine, California, it's a division of Yum Brands, which is one of 2 that are on this list, and it brought in $2.6 billion in revenue last year. So the chain employs over 210,000 people, and it's famed for its creative Mexican-inspired fare like tacos, burritos, and the beloved Crunchwrap Supreme. Taco Bell's menu continues to evolve, featuring new and limited time offerings that maintain customer interest and satisfaction. 7th, we have Wendy's. I knew Wendy's would appear on here somewhere. I just didn't think it would be this low on the list, but it's still on here. It's headquartered in Dublin, Ohio, and it reported revenues of $2.18 billion last year. It employs roughly 57,000 individuals, and it's known for its square hamburgers, sea salt fries, and Frosties, of course. Wendy's differentiates itself with its commitment to fresh, never frozen, and high-quality ingredients. So for these last few, again, same sort of drop-off from revenue. From Chick-fil-A to Chipotle was another almost $10 billion, and then it's slowly like going down a little bit. So I'm kind of surprised that, like, you know, there are really 2 Starbucks and McDonald's like are really dominating this market, you know? Obviously, that's not to say that Chipotle, Domino's, Taco Bell, and Wendy's are not successful, but they earned so much less on a yearly basis, or at least last year. And I don't know if they're, you know, if we'll ever see a time where these ones are going to be higher on the list.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be very hard to beat McDonald's and Starbucks for sure, just because I think McDonald's has been around for longer than a lot of these. And Starbucks, like you said, it's like a daily staple for many people. All
right, I'll get to the last 3 now. We have one more coffee place, another pizza place, and a sandwich place. So you can do some guessing, but I'll just tell you that number 8 is Dunkin'. I was kind of surprised that this was a little bit lower on the list, considering that Starbucks is so high on the list. It has a chokehold on people, I know that. It's located in Canton, Massachusetts, and it brought in an estimated $1.4 billion in revenue last year. So it supports a large workforce of over 270,000 employees, and it continues to dominate the breakfast segment with its coffee, donuts, and a wide selection of beverages, sandwiches, and seasonal items. It also caters to all-day snacking needs. Second pizza place on the list at number 9 is Pizza Hut, which is the other division of Yum Brands. So it's headquartered in Plano, Texas, and it achieved a revenue of just over $1 billion in 2023. The company employs more than 160,000 people, and it offers a wide variety of pizza styles, including its famous original pan pizza. But it also serves pasta, wings, and desserts, catering to a variety of dining preferences with options for dine-in, carry-out, or delivery. And then last on the list is Subway. Subway is based in Milford, Connecticut, and it saw revenue of $971.9 million in 2023, nearly cracking the $1 billion mark, but not quite. It employs nearly 21,000 people and leads in customizable sub sandwiches, promoting healthier eating with a wide variety of breads, toppings, and proteins, all emphasizing freshness. So, yeah, I was kind of surprised that we had one under $1 billion here, but yeah, and I think actually Subway, I'll make a note to try and remember this if I do this list again next year. But I think Subway will have higher revenues next year because they recently unveiled those like foot-long desserts, like the foot-long like cookies, and people are obsessed with them. So really? I'm thinking things like that will help them jack up their revenue a little bit. Yeah.
But Chipotle to me doesn't even feel like fast food. It honestly feels like it's like homemade wraps, really, and the size of them is amazing, and it really doesn't have the negative vibe, or should I say like negative association with fast food, because everything is like seems like healthy and wholesome, you know, like you can get a wrap with, I don't know, a bunch of different veggies and whatever meat you choose. I don't know much about their vegan options, but it doesn't feel like fast food at all. I mean, there's nothing that's like deep fried with oil and, you know.
that we know of.
So for me, I wasn't surprised by any of these 10. I was just surprised the fact that Starbucks was number one.
Yeah. And that brings up a good point. I mean, I was trying to sort of decipher what is considered fast food and then what is considered like a QSR, like a quick service restaurant, and if those can be the same thing.
Right.
And I think they can. I think Chipotle would consider itself like a QSR, but a lot of people would consider it fast food. I think that's more of an industry term than it is a well-known term. You're not like, hey, want to get some QSR food with your friends? Like it's not like that. You just say fast food. And I would categorize it as fast food as well. But yeah, good for Starbucks. I'm curious to do this list again next year and see if anything changed or if there were any like newcomers on this list.
Yeah.
But I think especially the top 3 will be hard to like penetrate and like get up, rise above them.
Yeah. I think there's only one dessert place on the list. It was just a Dunkin' Donuts. Right?
Dunkin', yeah. And I think it would consider itself more of a coffee place.
Oh, really?
Yeah. One thing that actually just came to mind is, I'm just thinking about the role that Uber Eats and other delivery services like might have played in these revenues. I didn't look this up when I was writing the story, but I'm wondering like what percentages of each revenue came from delivery services. Yeah. Just because they're so big now, and I would imagine, at least I would assume, that every single one of these places is on at least one delivery service.
Has Starbucks signed a deal recently with like Uber Eats?
I think Starbucks is on Uber Eats, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't know. Yeah. I didn't even know they had a delivery option, actually.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it. They must have to be competitive, right?
Yes, they do. McDonald's does, Chick-fil-A does, Chipotle probably does. I think they all do. And then Domino's has its own, which is interesting. And I wonder, they probably have chosen to keep it that way.
Oh, really? You don't think they're also on Uber Eats or anything?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, really?
They have their own. Mm-hmm.
So that you just have to call them, I guess, or through their app?
Through their app or their website, yeah.
Oh,
and they have this distinct they have this like tracker, so you can track this person's making your pizza. Okay, now they're putting it in the car, and now they're driving.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay,
so they're more old school in that regard, but I think the rest of them must be on Uber Eats or another third party app. All right, so moving on to our next story. It's a relatively big update from the USDA that has to do with Salmonella. this question of how common salmonella actually is in chicken became relatively crucial to the USDA recently because it mandated lower salmonella levels in certain frozen chicken items. So this is obviously to combat food poisoning. U.S. agriculture officials introduced a final rule a few weeks ago mandating significant reductions in salmonella bacteria in specific chicken products. So this rule is going to be implemented in 2025. High levels of salmonella in frozen, breaded, and stuffed chicken products will classify them as adulterated. And this category includes items like chicken cordon bleu and chicken Kiev, which may look cooked but are only partially heat treated. And this marks the first instance of the USDA classifying salmonella in raw poultry as an adulterant, similar to the treatment of certain E. coli strains in raw ground beef. So I'll just talk about some key elements of the rule. So the first one is the reduction of salmonella levels. So poultry producers are now required, or starting in 2025, to decrease salmonella to very low levels in targeted chicken products as a measure to prevent food poisoning. The new rule stipulates that salmonella will be considered an adulterant when found above specified levels in breaded and stuffed frozen chicken products. Protection for consumers now. So should salmonella exceed allowed levels, the affected products will be withdrawn from the market to safeguard consumers from the severe health risks these infections pose. Next, challenges and need for vigilance. So despite explicit cooking instructions on labels, the persistence of salmonella-related illnesses underscores the necessity for stricter regulations. And then foundation for a broader regulatory framework. So this rule covering a specific category of poultry products lays the groundwork for a broader regulatory approach, which is currently being developed that treats salmonella as an adulterant to enhance public health. So yeah, up until I guess this rule, I think we all knew, or maybe we didn't know, that it was sort of on the consumer to cook the salmonella out of chicken, right? And you're looking at me like, yeah, duh, obviously, because but you know it had continued to persist to the point where they had to do something about this. So do you think that this rule was necessary, or that it was just? I mean, I think so.
Yeah. So was the issue that people were getting food poisoning from these frozen chicken products? Sorry, is it only chicken?
Yes. So for the time being, only chicken.
Only frozen chicken.
Only frozen, breaded, and stuffed chicken. Okay. So, yes.
People were getting food poisoning after cooking that.
Well, that's the thing. They may not have been cooking them for long enough, right? Because they already look cooked, right? They already look cooked. So to some people, they think they just need to heat them up, but really they're only partially cooked.
That's true.
So salmonella can still linger in only partially cooked chicken.
True.
Yeah. So if it was fully cooked already and they just had to heat it up, I think it would be much less likely to still harbor salmonella. Yeah. So yes, that's what we're dealing with right now. And clearly it was enough of a problem for this rule to be implemented.
Yeah, I'm very surprised that people don't follow the instructions on labels and then they end up getting food poisoning. Because that's the first thing you do before you eat something that's packaged, right?
You would think.
There's very clear. Sometimes there's even like little pictures and they say like a clock with this much time, this is the temperature for oven, and then some have microwaves.
Yeah, and I thought the same thing as you. I was like, oh, doesn't everyone read the packaging? But yeah, they assumed
they're in a rush or very hungry.
They assumed it was already fully cooked and that they just had to reheat it. And I think I think more people than we would think it happens to them. Yeah. So my next sort of, what I got into a little bit next was how common really is salmonella in chicken. So the CDC estimates that salmonella is the leading cause of foodborne illnesses, with chicken being a significant contributor. So approximately 1 in every 25 chicken packages at grocery stores is contaminated with salmonella. I actually thought it would be a little bit more than that, but that's still relatively alarming since I've certainly bought more than that in my life. And then annually, salmonella infections impact over 3 million individuals just in the U.S. alone, which leads to about 420 deaths. And I know. And since 1998, breaded or stuffed raw chicken products have been linked to at least 14 outbreaks and 200 illnesses, as per the CDC. And a notable outbreak in 2021 resulted in numerous illnesses across 11 states, with 12 individuals hospitalized. And of course, other food products can be contaminated with salmonella as well. So for example, just last month, Trader Joe's recalled fresh basil packages from 29 states following a salmonella outbreak that affected 12 people. And the recall soon extended to their fresh basil brand sold in Illinois and Missouri. So I was touching on this a little bit before, but this targeted regulation paves the way for broader salmonella control measures now under consideration by federal authorities. So this proposal includes enhanced salmonella testing at poultry processing plants and stringent production monitoring, and it focuses on 3 salmonella strains responsible for a third of related illnesses. Poultry industry representatives argue, like sort of what we were talking about, that existing government measures and industry efforts to reduce salmonella in raw chicken are adequate at the moment. A National Chicken Council, or NCC, spokesperson expressed concerns that the new rule could lead to processing plant closures, job losses, and the removal of safe, convenient products from shelves without substantially improving public health. So in other words, things are fine the way they are. You're being too stringent here. I also don't really understand the potential job losses and plant closures. I would think that it would only up those.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day it will up those, but I think because food companies probably have to invest more in detection measures. I think it's mostly like testing measures to meet those maximum thresholds to make sure they're not above. So they need to implement some new tech.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so that's an investment on their end, right?
Yeah.
And then they may have to restructure and let go of some people. So wait, this rule is becoming in effect next year?
Next year, yes.
So they have some time to plan.
Yeah, they have some time to plan. And as I was saying, as we were talking about, it's just the frozen, breaded, or stuffed chicken products that this will be.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess any other chicken products, salmonella is fine.
Yeah, but actually, a lot of people buy those frozen chicken products. Maybe almost as much as like the raw chicken, so it's like they have a huge consumer base.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In the grocery store, just think about how many freezers are dedicated to those such products.
I know.
So yeah, a significant amount of people and companies and employees may be infected by this.
And maybe they started with these because I guess we know if we're buying and cooking raw chicken, you got to put that in the oven for a while. You got to cook that. And I think when people see half cooked or, it looks cooked to them already, okay, we just throw it in there, heat it up. So maybe that's why, they started with this.
But you keep on saying they started with this. Is there any more additional regulatory updates coming along?
Well, I think that there's some broader regulation and expanding sort of the framework for salmonella regulations sort of ongoing in the background. And I was, there's sort of, since they're considering salmonella now an adulterant, I think, yes, that's going to apply to other products as well. I think chicken, like I said, was the most common way to contract salmonella. But yeah, they're starting to treat this a little bit more like E. coli or other more deadly, foodborne illnesses. And I think that's quite a milestone. I'm kind of surprised that it hadn't been before.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because it had always been on the consumer to make sure that the food was properly cooked, whereas things like E. coli and Listeria, I don't think you can necessarily control, it in food.
Yeah.
And they're often found in foods that you don't have to cook. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
More stringent regulations are often good for the public health.
I'm happy to see this. I'm happy about this. I think my friend who did have salmonella would be happy about this too.
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the end of this episode of the Xtalks Food Podcast. If you like today's show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks, everyone, and see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Xtalks Food Industry Podcast. If you enjoyed our discussions today, please share the episode with your friends and colleagues, and be sure to subscribe in order to be notified when a new episode is released. To join in on the discussion, you can find Xtalks on social media. Email podcast@xtalks.com or comment on the articles directly. Links are in the show description. Take a moment to join our community at xtalks.com to get access to everything we have to offer, including webinars, job listings, virtual meetings, articles, and more. The views and opinions expressed in the podcast are those of the speakers sharing them. They should not be taken as professional advice and do not necessarily reflect the policy or position Honeycomb Worldwide. For further information, email us at podcast@xtalks.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.